promise I won't get too political or controversial in your show, but I'm thinking like how long before AI president, right?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, like we're all I'm not going to say anything about either candidate, but most people are dissatisfied with their choices.
Yes.
And I was thinking about this and I was joking with my son. I'm like, what would an AI president be like? And then I realized, well, you know what that would be like? Let's suppose we trained an AI to be like Lincoln, right? And grab some FDR and some Washington and all your
Yeah.
favorites
Yeah.
and throw
Yeah.
them all into the AI soup
Uh,
and say, here's our president.
okay. Welcome back to Exploring Growth. I'm very excited about this episode, and I'll tell you about that in a minute of why. But today we have the opportunity to hear from David G. Ewing, CEO of Motiv. Welcome to the show, David.
Hey, Lee, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to title this episode, but I could title it The Future of Business Growth. You know, that's probably not that catchy, but that's essentially what I think that we're going to be talking about today.
All
Um,
right.
I think that the topic of our discussion is going to kind of hit, right on that, because I think that we're going to end up really in the meat of the convergence of AI and BI, or business intelligence. But before we get into all of that, first, tell us about who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is David G. Ewing, and I'm the CEO of a company called Motiv. And at Motiv, we believe that the best customer experience wins. And customer experience to us is everything from the very first moment someone hears about your company, checks out your website or a social media page, all the way through the 7 phases of getting to engage with your company and finally, repeat buying. It's all of that put together, and it's the systems and the success strategy that you have to make that work ultimately so that you can get your customer lifetime value somewhere close to what it actually is max potential, right? I think every company realizes that there's so much more of the wallet that they could be getting from their customers.
Mm-hmm.
And customer experience is that emotional glue that brings that customer back so that they look for reasons to do business with you and not with someone else. And so that's what we focus on is making our customers successful across the CX spectrum.
Yeah. And so help me understand the technical connection to Oracle. What's your relationship with Oracle?
So Oracle is the world's largest software company. There's never been another software company for enterprise business like Oracle. I mean, Google is huge, Microsoft is huge. They have a lot of consumer side stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
Oracle is the biggest in business. And so what we do is we typically bring Oracle technology wherever possible in to solve problems for small, medium, and enterprise companies. And you'd be surprised how affordable it is when someone owns the entire stack from top to bottom. So what we like about Oracle is that it brings the security, it brings the scalability, and it allows us to set up a customer experience strategy for a company and then just scale the heck out of it so that they can continue to use it when they add zeros to their top line and bottom line.
Love that. Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking my language. And that's really kind of how we got connected is I think I saw a post on LinkedIn where you were talking about Oracle I don't remember exactly how I got to it, but Oracle becoming a partner with OpenAI. And so when I saw that you were involved in that, I was like, hey, this would be a great discussion because everyone's talking about AI, and a lot of people don't really understand what AI is and how it operates and how it works. I've had recently I had a software developer on that kind of explained a little bit about what AI is and how it works. So we don't need to get into that, but I really like this is very current as of what, a couple weeks ago, maybe, or a week ago that this happened.
Yeah, they just announced it. Yeah, that
Yeah.
OpenAI decided to expand all of their infrastructure into the what's called the Oracle Cloud infrastructure. So everybody's heard of Google or Amazon. They
Mhm.
all everybody has these clouds, and Oracle has
Yeah.
been putting together a cloud for years. And they would argue that they have the cheapest, most scalable cloud that's highly secure. So seeing that validation come from OpenAI was a big move for them. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And as I understand it, I'm very much on the outside of this conversation because I'm just observing things happening in the headlines. But it's really hard to get a connection to OpenAI in that capacity. Like it's really I mean, Oracle's up there. I mean, they're going to probably get one of the first seats to have the discussion. But I mean, they're not just giving these out.
No, no, but But the thing that I've found is that Oracle is hungry because it's kind of like, you remember those old Avis commercials where they're like, "We're number
Yeah,
two, so we try harder." I
yeah,
kind of think you see the same thing with Oracle. They're behind. They're not the name that you think of when you think of cloud. You think of Google, you think of Microsoft Azure Cloud, you think of all these other clouds.
yeah.
So Oracle is just so scrappy right now, and so
Okay.
it's easy actually to get an account and get started. And so if some of the fish want to jump in the boat,
Mhm.
they're gonna bring them in. But what's nice about their cloud is, yeah, you can set it up, and it is pretty cheap, and at the same time, it's got the enterprise scalability and horsepower that they're looking for. So I
Yeah,
think they're going to rapidly make up some ground in the space. Is my prediction. So.
I like that. So now, how does that affect the growth and offerings for your company?
Well, it's really interesting because last year we had the idea that we would build an AI product, and we built one. And what it was is anyone who was a marketer and got sick and tired of writing all of their marketing email, which
Yeah,
most digital marketers are sick and tired of writing marketing email.
yeah,
What you could do instead is you could just pop open this little chat GPT sort of window
yeah.
and go through a little chat bot and say, I want this style of marketing email.
Hmm.
This is my target. This is, the three value propositions, and this is the persona I want. And then bang, we'd fire that off to chat GPT. It would write this beautiful email, that you needed, and it would bring it right into your marketing application. And you could just, looks good, press send, and you're away you go, right?
Hmm.
Save you a lot of time. And nobody bought it. And it was really fascinating to say, well, why did this product fail? And so as we went and we interviewed all of the people who we thought would just love this thing,
Hmm.
it all came down to data privacy and security, and
Wow.
the fact
Yeah,
that most people don't understand it. Because even if
yeah,
all I'm saying to ChatGPT is, I have this customer base, which is so public, right? And I'd
yeah,
like to do this email, which is so public.
yeah.
And I'd like to accentuate these benefits, which will be in the email. This will all
Sure.
be public. The fear of, oh my gosh, like I can't imagine putting this into the public domain,
Hmm.
um, even though that doesn't make any rational sense, stop that product cold in its tracks. And what we realized is that yes, it's going to be about trust and
Yeah,
privacy, and what are you sharing with an AI, and who else can see that, because the AI is going to bring that into its model anytime you
yeah,
interact with it.
yeah,
So
yeah. Which is why I think, you know, I tell my clients, and my clients are very, sort of part of their DNA is to not put any actual private information into ChatGPT, because it's out there, right?
yeah,
You don't want that. The privacy thing is really interesting because um, I think people are very aware of keeping their stuff private. But this kind of goes to this other conversation we were having about privately held data and then data as a whole for a company. And so, I've been talking to some clients and colleagues about this for some time now, and when we were talking about this in our intro call to decide what are we going to talk about today, I got really excited because this is the place where I really feel like there's a huge convergence between what data we have in our organizations. Obviously, the bigger the organization, the more data you're going to have. So it's potentially could benefit you more to be able to call on it, and the way we interact with that data. So there you have AI, right? So I don't know. I just had this sort of shower thought the other day, and it happened before we got on our call, which gave me even more clarity for this discussion. But I thought maybe I'm just dumb, and maybe I'm just coming to this, but the internet gives us all of this information, and there's 99% of the things we need to know or want to know are out there, and people are continually creating new information. A lot of misinformation too. There's that. But at this point, the problem has been accessing the information in a low labor way, in a way that serves our need pretty immediately and effectively. And now that we have ChatGPT and we have other AI tools, we're able to essentially have a conversation with the data, right? And so it came to me, I was like, this is really where we're headed. When you say it, when I said it to myself, I was like, well, obviously, I mean, that's what ChatGPT is, but it wasn't so obvious to me at first, so I'm curious your thoughts.
so you've hit an important nail right on the head, and that is, when it comes to AI, it is all about the data. And
Right.
yes, there's this wealth of information, the whole internet out there, and the idea of or promise of an AI is that it can somehow get your arms around it. But when we think about it, the what's going to happen, the next thing that happens in AI is we've now gone to public AI. And the way I like to think of this is,
Hmm.
if you've ever been to a karaoke bar, right? You go
Yeah.
to a karaoke bar, it's public. And if you want to get up and sing, you don't get to talk about who you get to sing in front of. You're singing in front of
Yeah,
everybody,
it's right
right?
there. Yeah.
And whether that's your boss or whether it's to a bunch of strangers, you have total control over, you're just singing, right? And then, the next generation of karaoke was, oh, we can go rent like a private room with just me and my friends and I can
Mhm.
sing in here and it's sort of safe because now I'm just singing with my friends, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's going to happen to AI. We're going from the big open karaoke bar to my private little AI that,
Hmm.
I still have all the songs, right? I can still take the internet and download it into my AI and train it somehow.
Hmm.
But now I'm going to throw my own private stuff in here and I'm going to keep it private for me and I'm going to have my own private little AI
Yeah.
karaoke room. And that's what I think happens next. And so that's what,
Yeah.
this whole thing that this partnership between Oracle and OpenAI, I think it really makes that easy and possible so that everybody can have their private karaoke room of AI. And now we can do all sorts of interesting things because, to your point, it's all about the data. So what kind of data are we going to feed in there that wouldn't be public? Well, if you're a company that has, wearable technology or large equipment with IoT sensors on it,
Hmm.
right? Internet of Things
Yeah.
sensors, this stream of information is going to feed in, and you don't want that in public, right? Those are your customers, you know, sensors or whatever,
Sure.
your equipment, but
Hmm.
you can throw that into your AI. And what does that enable? Well, one of the coolest things that I'm excited about is what if service went the opposite direction? Right now, we have a problem and we call our customer support agent at our vendor and
Hmm.
say, I have a problem, right? And then they fix it. What if they called you? What if
Hmm.
because they're looking at the IoT stuff, they go, whoa, Lee's whatever is out of
Yeah.
whack. We're
Yeah.
gonna we got to let him know that it's a problem and that we're already on it and that we're going to send the replacement
Yeah.
part, doodad, checkup, whatever it is that we're going
Right.
to do. That's AI can do that, whereas we could never have service agents being that proactive and scaling like that, right?
Right.
So private AI is going to make that happen, and so that I think it's things like that get me really excited.
Yeah, even to the point where you take it to the next step where they just go ahead and solve it and either report on it or don't report on it, but they're solving stuff before even having to wait for it to be prompted to give service. I
Yeah,
think you could have the next level of serving your customer come to a fruition there. And I think you could probably even take it one more step in that I think what's going to be natural is that the customer can solve their own problem so much quicker than having to go to someone else to solve it. You know, I
yeah,
I have this sort of train of thought that I think where it's going is you'll end up having this person that works at a company, potentially internally at the company, depending on the relationship of what they're buying and or the vendors, the partnership or whatever. And they're called the implementer or the knowledge worker or the integrator, or there's lots of different words you could use to describe this person, but they're the person that understands fully how to utilize the tools with AI baked in that domain. And they're the person that is really could be, if they're internal, the key to customer success, customer service, and on. And so what I think so let's stop there. Let me get your ideas on that.
so I like to think of this as kind of how's it going to like roll out the next couple of years. So I think 2025, these are realistic scenarios, right? Where
Yeah.
people are having proactive AIs contacting humans, right?
Mhm.
Now let's go to 2026 or maybe 2027. I think that those proactive AI services aren't contacting humans anymore. I think they're contacting AIs on the other side
Yes.
to handle that, because when we can go AI to AI, suddenly a lot of things speed up.
Yes.
And and then that brings up another one. So the 20 so just thinking a couple years out and not next year, I think by 2027, here's another thing that is likely to happen is that if marketers are really good with AI, then vendor AI will be searching for information and interacting with the selling AI. Now, I'm pretty sure that all decisions will still be made by humans and there'll
Yes.
still be a human to human contact, but the information gathering, comparison, needs analysis, all of that stuff, a lot of that, what I would just call grunt work.
Yes.
I think 2027, that goes AI to AI. So
Mhm.
service goes AI to AI, and I think selling goes AI to AI, which is
Okay.
going to be kind of interesting. Um,
Super
you
interesting.
know, yeah. So we'll see how that goes, but I think that's kind of what we're preparing for right now.
So, if I extrapolate this in my mind out to, okay, there are a lot of jobs or roles inside companies that are going to be what you might call flattened, right? Where there are a lot of the time that they spent doing all these things is going to go away. They're still going to be needed for 20, 30, 40% of the work. And I was just talking to somebody about it this morning. It's like if you have true domain expertise in people inside your organization, let's say CFO, CEO, their C-suite leaders, VPs, um, depending on the size and nature of your organization, then those people automatically have to become so much more specialized in what they do, and they're essentially going to say, okay, well, I'm not spending time on any of this other stuff anymore. It's gone away over the course of weeks or months. It's just going to happen. So now what are they going to do with their time? And my thought goes to, okay, they'd go deeper into their specialty, CFO, CEO, their role inside the domain. They have expertise long standing. I think it starts to create an environment that where the visionary thrives. So if you have a visionary that is that sees what's happening, adapts to it quickly, because other people are going to just be forced to adapt, then you're going to have generational issues, and there's lots of factors that play in. But if you get the right person that's a specialty in a domain, they realize what's happening, they adapt to it, that organization can essentially be uh, the Starlink, the Tesla type of organization. They can grow rapidly, and they create such a gap between them and their competitors.
So Lee, I think I've got an idea for what you should call this conversation. You should call
Okay,
this the light and the dark of the future of AI. I
I
think
love
that
it. I love it.
because yes, on the dark side is
Yeah,
there are going to be some people who are just swept away by the rapid amount of change that we're going to
yes,
see here, right?
yeah,
And it's going to be scary. You know, even if the AI is totally benevolent and everybody loves to talk about how it might not be, but I think it
yeah.
will be. And I think it will still be terrifying to see how fast everything goes, because that is the light side. The light side of this is it's going to go so much faster than it's
Mhm.
gone before. Things, I mean, if you, I was, it was funny. I was just reading some narrative about Ulysses S. Grant, and I was reading the Ron Chernow book on this, and just watching the pace of how things move. Ulysses S. Grant is taking over, and he's beginning the Civil War, and he's starting to march down the Mississippi, and just the ponderous speed at which everything is going compared with now. And he's of course lightning fast for the
Yes,
day.
yes.
You compare that to now, and it's just hilarious, like
It's
how
unbelievable.
it seems quaint, that, and yet it's this horrendous civil war, right? Um, the thing is that we are about to go into a phase where things can go so much faster that
Mhm.
even the things we did in 2015 or 2020 will seem hilariously slow.
Yes,
And that's really the light side of this, is we just will go so much faster. And to your point about everyone will become a visionary, I totally think that's true, because what I've noticed with AI is it will, until further notice, I can't imagine how it flips the switch and becomes proactive and self-directed in a way that's going to really matter to me.
hmm
Where I can get how any entity could be self-directed for itself, but how can it be self-directed for me? That part I can't see. So I think that what's going to happen is, yes, most people are going to become far more visionary than they are now.
hmm
I think younger people will find that easier. Older people will be
yes,
flexing, pathways that they're not used to flexing. But I do believe that all of us could be more visionary than we are. And I think it will be a freeing feeling for
yes,
most people once they've gotten over the trepidation and fear. And I
yes,
think that'll be the light side of this, is speed and vision.
yes.
So
And I think that even though it seems super clear, like what we're laying out here, right? This thesis of what's going to happen, it seems super clear. I think that it still will have a lot of trepidation getting to that clarity, because you have businesses that are still operating in 1990, and somehow they're still in business and they still have customers, right? And you have generational type of thinking, where someone comes out of high school and they don't like the way it was done for the last 50 years. They're going to go opposite. So you have that coming into the market, seeing the upside and the downside, like you were saying, the dark and the light of AI. There's a whole generation or generations of people who are going to see the dark side, or what they think is the dark side, how they've been, it's either been propaganda to them legitimately, or they propaganded themselves, and they're going to go away from it, so it's this sort of convergence of oceanic waters at the same time. It's not all going to just be up and to the right, or a straight line from A to B. So I think it has the potential to do what we're saying it's going to do, but I think it's going to have the water so much more muddy getting there, because you have so many factors that play. It's not just a few factors that have to change.
I agree with that. And one thing that I heard not too long ago was the age that we are at
Mhm.
really has so much to do with our reaction to how this technology goes.
100%.
And the description I got is, look, anything that was invented between the time you were born and the time you're like about 14,
Mhm.
you just assume that's just part of your life. Like, that's just, as far as like most kids are aware, like it's just been here forever. Like they don't
Yeah.
even realize it, right? Anything that gets invented after you were about 14 years old till about 24 or 25 is kind of this exciting new
Yeah.
technology full of opportunity that
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
oh, how can I seize this,
I can
right?
be part of this. Yeah.
Yeah. From 25 to about 40, it's kind of like, this is a curveball. It's like uncomfortable, but
I have
it's
to do this
okay.
again.
And when you're over 40, in general, the knee-jerk reaction is, this is something that's interrupting my status quo. It needs to die right now,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. You can go back through any portion and realize that's everyone's knee-jerk reaction
Hmm.
to anything. So yes, I think as these sweeping changes occur, we all have to be mindful. I am over 40, and I am realizing that like my initial reaction of like, shut this down and kill it because it's interrupting the status quo. I have
Yeah.
to resist that
Yes.
temptation and and figure out how do I go back to being in my early 20s and think, ooh, what is this
Yeah.
exciting technology, even if it could be, kind of disruptive to even, how I run my own company.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. So
Yeah. I think the Gen X and millennials, it will depend on how adaptable they are to this. And then for your Gen Z and Alpha coming up, how excited they get about it. And if they don't get as excited about it, it will die, because
mhm.
ultimately the market decides on whatever happens. So if they want, it makes sense, and a lot of people are on board, and we're going to move forward with it. It really doesn't matter how much money's behind it, or even how much political clout's behind it. If it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. So that's still out there. They're still there.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think the general direction is anything that lowers cost usually wins.
Yes,
And
you're right about that. Because
just the time savings and the cost savings that are coming
yes,
our way are so astronomical that, they're going to win. So
yes,
we'll see.
I think the opposite of this conversation is the human element, because a lot of what we're talking about is becoming more specialized, doing less of, like, if we went from paper to Excel, that's a big shift. And you could do tremendously more with Excel than you could on paper or the calculator. Um, and I think it's similar to that. It's not the same, potentially exponential shift versus incremental. But the mentality is still there. The mentality is still the same. Of that shift has to happen. And I think that the human side of it still is in play, right? So as from a marketer, and having content marketing agency, the shift I see happening there in real time is the shift to more personalized content, more community oriented, where even B2B brands are trying to create communities around what they do, and add value to their customer before they become a customer. There's a lot more value that has to be added up the chain versus right at the point of sale and beyond. People want to feel like they're a part of something. They want to, even to the point of, does this mesh with who I am as a person? That's how I'm making my decisions. So there's a huge human element that's happening in parallel to this technical, hyper efficient element that's kind of machine driven. That's makes it super interesting for me.
Yeah, and there was this study that was done on physicians with AI not too long ago, and what they found was that when physicians were diagnosing patients with problems, um, and they compared their diagnosis versus AI's diagnosis, guess
Yeah,
what? They held up about 50-50. They
yeah,
were right on line, and so we're doing just fine there.
yeah,
Um, what's really interesting is they tested bedside manner through telemedicine and without the doctor being present, and the AIs were way better at
yeah,
bedside manner than the physicians because they just didn't have that. They never got tired, right? They never dealt with any of those things. So when you think about the human element of this, I think the
yeah,
one thing that softens the blow for all of us is that no matter how frustrated or angry you are or mad at AI, you're going to get some benefit from it, and it pretty much is
sure.
indestructible in terms of its
Yes,
willingness to have. It's never going to recoil from
you
your
can't hurt its
frustration.
feelings.
You cannot hurt its feelings. And I think that's really funny. It's funny. I wear one of these wearable health devices, and it's got an AI component now,
Yeah,
where I can say, "Hey, how am I doing? Am I working out enough and whatnot?" And
yeah,
sometimes the information it comes back with, I am not happy with, and I've been a little salty, and it's just
yeah.
amazing to see it just snap back. It's still my cheerful little coach, and it's telling me that I can still do it, and I should listen to my body.
It's like, absolutely, I can help you with that.
Yeah, you can do it, David. And I'm like, no, I can't. Stop. Leave me alone. So,
Well, this conversation could go, probably five different directions from here. But I think what you're to sit on this for a minute, the human element, you're right about that. Like the efficiency factor and even the effectiveness factor is huge, for AI coming into all of these our worlds, um, and it will replace the human element to some degree. There's a fast food restaurant that I go through every once in a while, just because it's just dead simple. It's like right at the end of my street. I won't name their name because I've reached out to them, try to work with them, and they haven't responded. I don't like that. I want to work with them and help them.
fair, fair, fair.
Um, it's not Chick-fil-A, because Chick-fil-A is amazing, and we actually do work with Chick-fil-A, and but it's another one, right? And every blue moon I'll go through there when it's like nothing in the refrigerator. Like we just have nothing. Like the kids we've had pizza 3 nights in a row. Let's just go down there and grab some burgers. Well, they started implementing AI at the little you know radio thing where you pull up and it takes your order. This was like a year ago, maybe longer. I pull up and it starts to take my order and tell me what you want, and I can speak in complete sentences. It kind of tells you the whole thing. I was like, no way, I'm not doing this at all. And so I didn't even give them my order. I just drove up to the window and I said, really? You're using AI now? Like, or whatever, this automated bot? They're like, yeah, that's what they're having us do. And I said, okay, well, I'm not doing that. I'll give you my order. And she's like, okay, takes my order. So, next blue moon comes around and we drive up there for hamburgers, and I go up and it's still there. They're still using it. I thought they would have gotten rid of it. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm gonna just give it the hardest order that I can think of and see if it gets it right. Well, it got it perfectly right. And at the end, I said, can you tell me back my order to make sure I got everything right? It told it back perfectly. And I was sold. I was like, wow, this is crazy. So every time I go through there, I'm now talking about the human element of it. I'm actually kind of excited to talk to this thing. Like, what is happening, right? So I think that there's an aspect to it that is for real because I've experienced it, and I think that's even more and more is going to come. And we'll enjoy certain parts of customer service at the Walmarts of the world or wherever that we don't have to interact with a human who doesn't want to be there, right? But then on the other side, I think that there's a human element that won't ever go away because everyone, like COVID is the perfect example. We go through COVID, and 3 months in, we're all thinking we're all going to stop shaking hands forever, like, because we just don't do that anymore. Like, no, we're going to still shake hands with people because this is what we do. This is colloquialism at worst. Like this is what we do. We want to connect with people. We want to hug people, want to touch people, and tell me something that I don't know. And I want to be in your world and you be in mine. So I think there's that element of it that's going to stay heavily in business. And in fact, going back to the marketing side, building communities, I think is going to become even more so. Because if you look at these younger generations, that's what they're looking for. Is they're looking for getting off of, I mean, even my kids are even in Gen Z and Alpha, like looking get off the device and go connect with their friends, go play pickleball, right? So it's like this weird mashup that's coming.
Yeah, and so I have a couple of thoughts on that. So one is that your adoption of the drive-through AI is
Mhm.
really interesting, right? It is
Yeah,
a microcosm of what's going to happen
it is.
as we adopt this, because you went from fear and rejection,
Yeah,
right? That was your opening move to
yeah,
a skeptical try to confidence
completely.
to
I'm all in.
preference, right?
Yeah,
Now it's what you want.
yeah,
So I promise I won't get too political or controversial in your show, but I'm thinking like how long before AI president, right?
yeah,
Because here's the thing, like we're all I'm not going to say anything about either candidate, but most people are dissatisfied with their choices.
yes,
And I was thinking about this and I was joking with my son. I'm like, what would an AI president be like? And then I realized, well, you know what that would be like? Let's suppose we trained an AI to be like Lincoln, right? And grab some FDR and some Washington and all your
yeah,
favorites
yeah,
and throw
yeah,
them all into the AI soup
uh,
and say, here's our president. Um, you could talk to him every day, right?
yeah.
You and I could each have a
Each
conversation
individual
because
person.
every person could
Think of
be,
the democracy of that.
yeah, they could be synthesizing, hey, thanks, Lee, that's a great idea. I'll think about it,
Uh-huh.
and bedside manner will be wonderful.
Yeah,
And I'm like, hey, AI president's not as scary. So yes, I go through, we're all at the fear stage of that
yeah,
right now, right? What the nuclear
yeah.
codes? Oh no, but I kind of think that, how long is that going to take? Is that a 50-year thing? Is it a
I don't know. I
100-year
think we
thing
should
before?
get hats printed up that say ChatGPT 2024.
Yeah, yeah, for president, yeah.
Probably sell a few.
Yeah, so we'll see how long that takes to go, but a couple of the other things that happen about this is, the one thing about technologies that I think is the best rule of thumb came from Nassim Taleb, who has this rule of thumb that says you should assume that every book, every idea, every technology is about halfway through its usefulness in life cycle. And here's what I mean by that. Like we all have chairs. How long have chairs been around? I don't know, 50,000 years. I mean, they've been around
Yeah,
probably since we could sit around a campfire,
right after rocks.
right after rocks, it's chairs. So we're probably halfway through that. We're probably going to have chairs for the next 50,000 years. It's
Yeah,
probably rule of thumb. A book that came out last year, most books that have come out, they have about, they're at about the halfway point. So any book that people are talking about last year, it's probably done by next year. And then
that's
that book is,
literally where we get
that's it.
the phrase. It has a shelf life.
Right. Yeah. And so, everything that we're talking about is new. So you got to realize that a lot of this stuff is
Yeah,
going to come and drop, and it's going to get replaced by something else. And so
mhm.
hopefully when people are snickering about this conversation, if they're listening to it in 10 years and are like,
Yeah,
how wrong were these
or
two
10
fools?
months.
Yeah, it's because we're aware that like it's going to shift and change in so many
Yeah.
unimaginable ways. But yeah, I think to the better is what I'm thinking. But yes, a lot of these things will come and go. We'll see how long
Mhm.
private GPTs go before they get replaced by something else. So
Yeah. Well, I think that AI for president is a kind of interesting idea. I don't think we could ever get there because none of us could ever agree on what that ideal president would look like. Like, so we would never even get to the standard of what we feed it to make it.
well, imagine if our democracy was around voting for which philosophy we wanted, right? Do you want something that's a little bit more Athenian and a little bit more, Aristotle, or do you want something Platonic and a little bit more touchy-feely? And I
Uh-huh.
don't know, could probably think about some different philosophies around the direction we'd want the country to go. And
And then that just comes back to where the question that we have to answer anyways, and that is who controls the AI, right?
exactly.
Because
Yep.
whoever controls it wins.
Yep. Yep. That's right.
So that's the dark side, the
There's the
very
dark.
dark side.
Yes. So, yes, I'm
So
not ready to surrender my life to an overlord just yet. So,
I don't know. I mean, given my fast food experience, we might have fear at first and trepidation, and then we'll be all, hey, take it.
yeah.
You know.
And then, the funny thing is 100 years from now, they couldn't imagine the opposite of like, you
Yes.
trusted a human being with the
Yeah.
nuclear codes. Like,
What is a human
a
being?
human being is so fallible. Like, they could just get mad one day and nuke everyone. And so, much better to have a stable AI. So we'll see.
Amazing. Okay, well, we're kind of getting to the end of the time frame I usually have for these episodes, so we'll kind of let's ramp that conversation down. And I want to just quickly touch on there's something else that you're out in Austin, Texas, and I've heard a lot of great things about Austin and what people are doing out there. And you are part of an organization that you just stepped down as president from, which is Entrepreneurs Organization. I think. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so EO is a global organization. So there's actually a chapter in the city near Yulee,
Cool.
and
All right, I didn't know that. Yeah.
yeah, and so each chapter, it's a very fractal organization. So the global organization is broken down into citywide chapters. I was the president of the Austin chapter, which is about 235 entrepreneurs in Austin, Texas. And I've got to know all the presidents of all the other chapters in Detroit and Chicago and Phoenix and
Nice.
LA and so forth. Um, and really, the mission of the organization is to unlock the potential of every entrepreneur. So what we do, we have all kinds of programs that really are meant to help entrepreneurs deal with the three things that they will get in their way, right? And the three things that will get in their way are number one, of themselves. So
For sure.
trying
That's
to
number one.
deal with, yeah, like your fear
100%.
and anxiety, your change, your leadership foibles,
Yeah.
all of the flaws that we all have as individuals. That's the first thing. The second thing is trying to be an entrepreneur and have a family, right? Which is also so
Super
difficult. It
difficult.
doesn't matter if you're the man or the woman or what kind of relationship you have.
Yeah.
If you bring entrepreneurship into a family, you are going to have stresses in that
Yes,
family, right?
100%.
And so that's the second thing that we deal with. And then the third thing is the nuts and bolts of actually running that darn business.
Yeah.
And so how do you deal with like AI and all sorts of stuff? In fact,
Yeah.
my AI ramp up involved a lot of me reaching out to other entrepreneurs through the network or going to different sessions. We had a guy named Scott Eppringham come in last September and gave a signature talk to us. And what he did is he sat us all down, and in 90 minutes, he gave us the prompts so that we could go into ChatGPT and get a $90,000 marketing plan by the time we left. And so
Okay.
in 90 minutes, we all had all of our personas, we had all of our segments, we had
Yeah.
marketing strategies, we had emails, we had everything,
Yeah.
which is what gave me the idea for that product I mentioned earlier in our conversation.
Yeah.
And it all came from that hanging out with Scott for 90 minutes, and it was amazing. So
That's awesome.
so all of our programs are designed to do that. Some of them are very confidential and private and very small groups. So we get people together in groups of like 6 to 8
Hmm.
where they can deal with some of those personal things that you're really not willing to talk about with everyone else.
Hmm.
And other things are wider, and some of them are even global. So there's been a lot of stuff. I've met all kinds of crazy people last year. I had to sit down and have lunch with Vicente Fox, the former president of Mexico, came and visited
Wow.
us. That was great.
That's cool.
Got to pass a basketball with Magic Johnson. That was really
Nice.
fun, and talk to him about all of his investments and all the things he's doing, and
That's cool. Yeah.
several other people along the way. So lots of once in a lifetime experiences, but also lots of personal growth and education along the way. It's a great community and
It's
is a
awesome.
lot of fun.
That's awesome. So you're stepping down as president. Now how are you going to fill that time? Because you have to, right?
Well, that's a great question. So, the great thing about EO is it's an all volunteer organization.
Yeah.
So my time was our fiscal year from July 1st to June 30th. So I wasn't I did my 1 year, and it was wonderful. Had a great
Mhm.
experience and handed it off to a really terrific person for the next year. But what's really interesting is EO has a path of leadership, and so now that I've run a local chapter, there's opportunities to work with the region and then ultimately with global. So that's one avenue. But the avenue I'm going, at least in this next year, is I'm going to be launching a new company with my
Okay.
copious free time. So there'll be Motive. And then, heard it here first on your podcast lead. We are
Yeah.
launching Content Lion, a software company designed to help you create AI driven content and to take your
Awesome.
content that you have and put in AI searching and tagging so that you can disseminate it everywhere where it belongs. So Content Lion is going to be out by the end of the year,
Love
according
it.
to our plans.
That's awesome. Well, once you get to the point of launching or pre-launch or whatever, we'll have to have you back on to talk about that and dig into it.
Awesome. Count on it.
Well, cool. This has been a great conversation, as I knew it would, and I definitely want to have you back. We can talk about that. we talk about, we can go, I think, as this evolves, there's several guests I've had on that we've got into this conversation, or some surrounding it. And we've got to have repeat discussions to keep up with what's happening.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this AI thing is unfolding day by day, week by week, and
Hmm.
it's going to be wild to see what happens over the next couple of years. So, the only thing I'm sure of is that we will look back and laugh at this conversation in a very
Yes.
short period of time because it's
Yes.
changing so fast.
Yes, it is. So if I want to send people your way, where do I send them?
DavidGEwing.com is my main site. I have a newsletter there that I send out to people about wondrous things that are going on in customer experience and AI and my other thoughts on leadership. So that's great. Also on LinkedIn, always love to link in with people. So David G. Ewing, you find me on LinkedIn, and it's in/David G. Ewing.
Love it. Hey, thanks again. This has been great, and we'll definitely have you back.
Great. Thanks, Lee. It's been a pleasure.